I'm so
Hi.
sorry that I turned off the recording when I did the share. So let me just quickly say, my name is Beverly Susan Carter, Miss Bev, the Vice President of the Alliance of Non-Traditional Students, a group for students who are older or neurodiverse or formerly incarcerated or parents or a big gap in school and justice impacted, system impacted, just not just straight out of high school. I've met Laura and John when I entered my undergrad in 2017, and these two incredible people have been so gracious to offer their time to speak. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, but most of you have already submitted questions, and I have those questions here. So, Laura, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little about the degrees that you have and what you're currently pursuing? Just the whole kit and caboodle.
Laura Benedict, Anthropology Collection Specialist at the Arizona Museum of Natural History. I have an associate's in psychology, a bachelor's in sociology, and one in anthropology, a master's in organizational leadership, anthropology, and arts administration. I'm currently working on communications. Was there
Great.
another question in there?
No, 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 that's pretty. Could you, if you don't have to give us your age, but you give us your age range. I always feel it's important because we try to advocate for those people who don't feel like college is for them.
I'm almost 50.
Great. Thank you so much. And John, could you please also introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon. I'm John Benedict, and I am an assistant professor at Southern Utah University. I teach aviation sciences, which encompasses quite a few different things. But I like to tell people I teach other people how to keep big planes from falling on little houses. I have two master's degree, one in organizational leadership, very similar to Laura. I also have another degree in public administration with emphasis in higher education. And I'm working on a third master's in education. Um, I also have a bachelor's degree in geosciences and another bachelor's degree in um, geology and a third, I should say almost complete in anthropology. I have one gen ed class left to complete there. I have three associate's degrees, one in anthropology, one in psychology, and one in aviation maintenance technology. And I've been doing this student and teacher thing for quite some time now. And as far as my age goes, Ms. Bev, you and I are very close together with that age.
Yes, we are. So, thank you both. So, Laura, how did your educational journey start? Did you go to school right after high school? When did you go back as a non-traditional student? How many years have you invested in your education?
I started my higher education journey in January of 2008. It's been 18 years of continuous learning. That was 12 years after my high school graduation. I started because I had previously attempted to get back into college and was unable for several reasons. But my son was one at the time, and I had separated from my husband. I don't think I was fully divorced yet. But I was starting my new life, and I knew that I needed more education than I had. And so I started out with the idea that potentially I could be a child psychologist at a school, at least in the same district as my son. I saw that when he was one, I knew that eventually he would get into school, and I wanted to be able to be around and have a similar schedule so that if anything happened, I would be there. If when he came home from school, I would be there. That was my goal, which didn't that didn't happen. But that story is a whole nother podcast.
Often our paths go astray, right? And
Mhm.
John, what about you?
I started my return to school in 1988, which was about 11 years past my graduation from high school. Um, I started aviation school and graduated from there in 1990, and then I took a little bit of a break until about 1997, where I picked it back up again and and went back to community college for a while and picked up some degrees there. And my first alma mater that I claim anyways is Wichita State University, where I got my first bachelor's degree in geology. And as they say from there, history has already spoken. I've been doing this really ever since 1988.
I didn't have this question on my list, but I should ask it. What degrees did you get from UNLV specifically? Go ahead, John.
As of yet, I have not received a degree from UNLV. I will probably by the end of summer. I have exactly one class, and it's a gen ed class. It's very hard to find um, where that I'm able to attend. Let me put it
Oh,
that way,
okay.
because I can't go to campus 2 or 3 times a week to do an in-person class. So I have to watch for those online classes and get into one of those. It's a cultural class. It's probably going to end up being world history since 1500, I believe. And then that will be a bachelor's degree in anthropology, which I've completed all the other work for. I just have that one gen ed class that's hanging there. Um, I do intend to go a little bit further. We've been kind of toying with the idea of a PhD, and I've been talking to some of the professors down at the campus, and we haven't come to a solid decision yet, but it's coming.
Your obstacle is a whole conversation for another seminar about access for non-traditional students, about online classes. Here you are one class away. So when we talk about policy and obstacles and things that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that you can't complete your education because you are unable to attend these classes and you're only one class short. So that's a whole nother conversation that I won't get into. But Laura, what about you and UNLV? What did you do specifically at UNLV
My two anthropology degrees, I earned a bachelor's in 2018 and a master's in 2022.
in anthropology? Thank you. Oh,
Correct.
was that the one when you did your master's and that was your master's that you defended, right? That I sat, you did the
Yes.
thing about the bones and
Yes.
Laura, so guys, Laura, you could, in her particular master's, she had to defend it, right? A capstone, which is kind of like a mini thesis. And I was able to zoom in and listen to it. And I was busy scribbling words down, like, what? What is that word? I don't know what that is. But I learned a lot. It was really interesting. So I'm glad that I did that. So, Laura, are you a first generation student?
Yes.
Or as a young person, how did your family growing up influence you to go to school or not influence you or support you or tell us a little bit about that.
Higher education was always a lofty goal that was just out of reach, specifically as a woman. It was something that they would hold as an ideal, but they felt that it was closer to getting my MRS than an actual important thing to pursue.
So how did you end up pursuing it if that is not the foundation that you had?
Well, actually, I did first pursue my MRS. I married at 19, which I do not recommend for anybody. Do not do that. After 12 years of marriage, I left my first marriage and I had a son, 1 year old, and decided to pursue a higher education to try to get a better job prospects and figure out my life.
Thank you. John, were you a first generation student?
I was, and unfortunately, my family had zero input on my education, in my progress. I will say that the marriage that I was in with Laura was very supportive of my education, and I tried to support her in her education as well. And so the immediate family ties was very helpful in continuing our education throughout the years.
What did that, what, how do you think you could have made it without support, without the encouragement?
Uh, It's really hard to say. I don't think it would have been as successful without continuous support from Laura at the time. There was other extenuating circumstances that will
Mhm.
go with a whole different seminar on that one. And so her support was instrumental in allowing me to decide to continue my education, and I tried to return that support to help her continue her education as well.
For the audience, I did not mention that I graduated UNLV in 2021 with a multidisciplinary bachelor's in entrepreneurial management and urban studies. And through the encouragement of one of my professors, I then went on to my master's where I am now in higher education, a totally different degree. So because of my activities and involvement, I consider myself a non-traditional student advocate activist, though by trade I'm a tax preparer for 26 years. So why I asked John that question is within higher education, there is constant conversation around support. What does support for the student look like? What do the students need and the different needs of different students as we're learning in diversity? So what do the Native American students need? Is that different than the Asian American students? And when you say Asian American students, you really have to disaggregate that group within their ethnicity. They are not a monolithic group. So my support question was an education question because support is extremely important, whatever that support is for you and whoever you get that support from, whether it's family, friends, or school. So that is why I asked. And Laura, how do you feel that what has support looked like for you and how has it impacted your education? I know that wasn't on my questions, but it came to me.
So beyond financial support, which is a completely different, in my opinion, that's a completely different conversation. Support would be assistance in time management, um, daily chores and working that around, for instance, a work schedule, a for pay or even an internship work schedule, and trying to work in your class schedule and also working in things like childcare. In our case, we did not have elder care, but there are people out there who do need to care for their elders. And these are the types of things that having a support network would very much assist with.
Thank you. I'm going to jump to a question that was given to me earlier by our audience because you just kind of said it. How were you two able to fund all these degrees? Laura, you have the floor.
Student loans. I could buy a pretty decent house with my student loans, which will never get paid off.
Mm. And
So
John,
there's a secret that I've learned early on. Um, yeah, mine is mostly student loans. The first couple of degrees I paid for out of my pocket, and then uh, I started getting student loans. And as Laura said, I could probably buy a very nice house here in Las Vegas for what I owe in student loans. That never goes away, by the way. So if you're a student thinking about getting student loans, you really need to consider that will follow you the rest of your life until it's paid off. Or in some of our cases, if we continue to be students until we die, those student loans will be held in abeyance.
there you go. So just so you guys know, from a tax perspective, Social Security can be, what's the word? Garnished for student loan payments. So yeah, Social Security. Student loans always want their money. Again, if you guys have any questions that you'd like me to ask, please indicate that in the chat section. But again, so here's the burning question. Well, many of the questions are burning. Laura, you said three masters?
Correct.
And John, four masters?
No, two and third one in the works.
Okay. Why no PhDs?
I have yet to find a program that is right for me.
So could you expound on what is it that you want?
Well, I need something that makes sense, that might further my career choices. But I don't yet have anything that's online. The program that I most recently looked at requires full-time in-person schooling. I have a full-time job. I can't do that. It would also be very helpful if, uh, because right now my schooling is paid for through John's job. I don't want to add to those student loans. They're being added to by virtue of interest. I don't want to add to them in addition to that. And so I don't want to add more loans to get a PhD, specifically if it won't directly affect, improve my job prospects. I can't justify it right now.
Okay, great. John?
I'm probably in a similar boat as Laura. I can't find an adequate online uh, PhD or doctorate, either one. A doctorate would probably be a little bit less expensive because it's not as entailed as a PhD is. There is actually a difference between the two that some
Oh,
people don't realize.
oh, please talk about what the difference
Um,
is.
well, there's more involved in a PhD. The PhD is a bigger, more involved degree than a doctorate would be. And there's additional work that you have to do. And in most cases, there's a thesis that you have to or a dissertation, I should say, that you have to defend at the end of a PhD, whereas a doctorate, it could culminate into a kind of an assignment or even a culminating assignment or a capstone, if you will, that you can complete and still receive a doctorate. Uh, both degrees basically carry the same weight in the industries, anyways. But in my case, I'm in education right now in higher education, and my master's supports me in that area. Once I complete this educational degree, I may go on to get a doctorate in education, just so that I might have the chance to move up into uh, executive academics as opposed to being faculty. I'm also faculty senate, and so these things will hopefully enhance my career, as Laura mentioned. Um, that's the primary goal when you want to do that final big degree. I want to add something here now that because
Please.
it's in my mind and I don't want to forget it. Um, Students that are coming up in the academic world, the one thing that overshadows everything else that I can think of right now is self-advocacy, learning how to be your own advisor, because most advisors really don't know you very well. And so they're going to give you that boilerplate generic advisory that they're trained to give you. That may not fit you. And most cases, especially with the non-traditional students, it doesn't fit you. As Laura brought up, she has a full-time job. So there's no way and so do I. So there's no way we can attend in person a full-time academic schedule and get away with it, so to speak. So you have to learn how to be your own advisor and go through the programs and see what fits you and do the things that fit you best.
Thank you, John. Laura, do you have anything you want to add to what John just said?
I would second the whole thing about being your own advisor. They don't seem to, in my experience, and from when I speak to friends about things, they don't seem to make the connections, such as if I'm interested in anthropology, by the way, there's an RSO for that. By the way, there's an RSO for non-traditional students. Other things that could help, or there's an internship that you might want to take, which may or may not be required for your degree. Especially if it's not required, the advisor won't bring it up. They might not even know it exists. So you have to search into that type of thing.
Thank you. So
Registered student organization.
I'm glad you, yes, the Alliance of Non-Traditional Students, Jim, is a registered student organization, RSO. Um, I don't want to do any of the talking here, but I do want to give a story for the audience that I started out as a business major and I could not get past remedial math. Besides the fact that it had been 28 years, I was never good at math. And through UNLV, and I'm very thankful for that, I got free testing, 15 hours of cognitive testing to find out that I actually have a math disability. And I didn't know there was such a thing, but I am dyslexic, so it kind of made sense. So I didn't know that that even existed. It was very emotional for me, but I had to make a change. My advisor um, that I had was actually my second advisor because my first advisor was not dialed in and didn't try to dial in. And when I said, I have a job, he goes, well, I don't know what to tell you. You should take 5 classes. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And I took it down to 4 and then I took it down to 3. And I never did more than 3 after that. I didn't care how long it was going to take, but it just didn't make any sense. And he even asked me to get a syllabus from a class I took in 1991, and this is 2017. I'm like, are you kidding? And I called the school and they're like, no, we can't help you with that. So you're right. Sometimes they're not dialed in. And I called up the department. It was the business department. I said I'd like a new advisor. And they said, no, I'm sorry, we don't change advisors. You have to stick with that one. And it's, I'm sorry, I apologize. Let me rephrase that. I will never speak to this man again as long as I live. Hold on, let me get you somebody. So I did get a new advisor. I was so happy I got a second advisor. So when I was having problems with the math class, he said to me, well, since you're just taking classes anyway, why didn't you just change your major to finance? I said, excuse me? He said, well, you're just here to get a degree. And I literally turned around to see who he was talking to because there had to be someone else in the room. He never asked me why I was in school. He never asked me what my goals were, but he looked at my age. And at the time, I was 50 something, late 50s, because I graduated in 2021. I was 63. He made an assumption. So, yes, you have to be your own advisor. Now, finally, when I switched over to liberal arts, a multidisciplinary degree, which I'm an advocate of multidisciplinary, somebody I was talking to before we officially began was kind of struggling between two multidisciplinary degrees, which a liberal arts degree allows you to take 2 or 3 majors and combine them. And then you have to defend how they work together. But when you get to the 300s or the 400s, I had 2 majors. I had to pick 7 300 and 400 classes, whichever I wanted. So it's really tailored to you, but you must defend how these two things work together. So I really believe in that when you can't make up your mind or when something doesn't fit, right? Laura and John both said they can't find a PhD that fits them and fits their time schedule. But anyway, I did get a great advisor in liberal arts, a great advisor. She was wonderful. So I'm not knocking because this is on record. So I'm not knocking all advisors, but you better be your own advocate. You absolutely better be. Masters, my advisor, I can't even tell you how great it is in my masters. Masters and undergrad are 2 different worlds. They really are. If any of you are undergrads, masters is a different world. And Laura is shaking her head, yes. So not one of my questions, but how is masters are different from a BA? Go ahead, Laura.
There is so much greater pressure. There's more that they expect from you. There's more they expect you to know that they won't ever tell you. There's a greater pressure. The classes themselves, each individual class feels like 2 as far as your reading assignments, your writing assignments, the type of things that you are expected to incorporate. There, it's just such a different feeling. For each class, it seems more important. Each class is so much more significant. There's never any, every undergrad degree has the, oh, this is a This is an easy A type of a class. This is all you really need to do is show up and take the weekly 10-point quiz, right? Masters never has that. In fact, I don't think I've ever had a midterm, and I don't remember ever having a final exam
Yeah.
in any of my master's level classes. There's always a final project that I start working on the first day. The very first day, I look at my syllabus and then say, what's the final project? And I start working on it because I need the entire semester to get through it. And sometimes I don't feel like I've done my best work because I didn't have enough time to get to that final project.
Thank you, Laura. What about you, John?
I agree with Laura on the starting the final project right away. It's the one of the biggest cancers in um, any degree program is procrastination. It will bite you in the end, and you'll end up trying to do catch up, which some professors won't allow. To give you a perfect example, I get maybe 2 or 3 students out of my 150 or so students every semester that I teach that will email me 2 weeks prior to the end of class and asking me to open up all the assignments so they can at least get a C in the class. I go, well, where were you when the assignments were actually posted? And so, yeah, that never really works. And that's just nothing but procrastination. Um, and I have had a couple of midterms and finals in some of my classes, but they're different classes than what she took when it comes to our second degree and third degree in this case. But for the most part, it's usually a final project or a final paper, um, and very seldom is there a midterm. Uh, so it's way different than undergrad classes are when you have a relatively structured program where, somewhere about halfway through the semester you get a midterm, and then at the end you get a final exam. Um,
Wow, thank you.
so again, procrastination is your worst enemy.
And I actually was going, and John, thank you. I see that you went and Laura went into the chat to answer the questions. I was going to speak on them. But since we are here, let's just go to that question that I had about study skills. And because you already talked about time management and procrastination. So being lifelong learners, what skills did you have to develop? What do you think is the most important skill when it comes to studying? What have you mastered? What has given you what has gotten you through? Go ahead, Laura, please.
I have an entire presentation on this that I've given for ants before. It's been a
Yes.
few years, but I
Mhm.
have given a presentation about time management and setting up your calendar and schedule your school time, schedule your study time, schedule your away time. Get away from school, get away from, I'll go back to that RSOs and anything that else. Schedule time with your family, your friends. Schedule 10 minutes a day for yoga or meditation, whatever it takes to just break away from all the stress. Complete that stress cycle. Let your brain shut off for even if it's 5 minutes, whatever you need, schedule that in.
John?
So Laura and we actually shared a calendar. Usually it was a Google Calendar. And if we had an event, we would make sure we put it on the calendar so each of us knew what was going on that day. And we tried not to, overschedule something or schedule something overlapping. And so sharing a calendar really worked for us during those times when we had a lot of things going on. And I mean, we had our work schedule on there. We had any events that we were going to. We had our class. Most of the time, we had our class schedule on there, like when the assignments are due and things of that nature. And so each of us could see, okay, that block is taken. We don't want to put anything in that block. So time management was extremely important to us at that uh, juncture in our lives.
Thank you so much. Where's that question the guy asked that I wanted to list? Oh, I scratched it out by mistake. This is one that was given to me. Of all the subjects and skills you mastered, which one provided the biggest competitive advantage or highest return on investment when you stepped outside of the university and into the real world? The university is the real world, but go ahead. Go.
Critical thinking. When you can, the critical thought, number one. The second thing I wrote down was synthesizing different subjects into a cohesive theory idea. And then the last thing that I put a star next to was information literacy.
What is information literacy?
When you can confidently state that the information that you're gathering is credible.
Great. And that is primary sources as opposed to like we don't do Wikipedia, right? We don't do
Okay,
that.
a note on Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a really good spot for a springboard.
Yes, I use it for that.
I don't know what's the difference between cultural and behavioral anthropology. Wikipedia might tell you that, and then down at the bottom, there's resources. You go look at those resources. You read the original thoughts because Joe over here says that citation number one means this thing, but Susan says it means something else. But when you read it, you might say it means something completely different than either one of them said. So you go back to the original sources, and then you start thinking about, well, who funded that? If cigarettes don't cause cancer was funded by, I don't know, what's a big Philip Morris? I don't know. Then you know that that funding source might be questionable. And so you might have to start thinking, okay, where are the biases? I looked up just recently, I needed to find a news article for something, and I'm like, okay, well, which news articles today are the least biased? Because when I looked it up maybe 5 years ago, that has changed. I've noticed a change over the last year to 5 years that there's different biases. And so which one is it? You know what it said? When I went to my search engine to say what news source is the least biased? The Weather Channel. And everything else was like close, like very far second. It's yeah, Weather Channel is the only thing anybody believes anymore.
That's funny and sad.
I know.
It's funny and sad. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
So John, so what have you mastered? Which one of your degrees has given you the highest return on investment?
I got to say, organizational leadership really stood out to me. That information literacy is actually a required course in that particular master's degree, and that really highlights how you synthesize what articles you're reading and what you're getting out of those articles, and is it credible? The critical thinking part of that is you have to check these resources, especially nowadays when articles could be completely written by AI, and those resources down at the end of the article probably don't even exist. AI is well known for fabricating sources. You click on one of those sources and you go and you look for whatever information you were looking at. It doesn't exist. So people out there that are using AI, please understand that AI is not the cure-all for writing assignments or researching. Um, you really need to do your diligence, go and look at those resources personally, pull them up, read it, synthesize what you're reading, and pull out that information that you need, and uh, try to expose those biases that Laura mentioned, because they mean a lot, and they could skew the information in one direction or another.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm a higher ed major, so I would be remiss if I didn't ask a higher ed question. Aston Student Involvement Theory. Aston, I quote Aston all the time. So Aston's theory says that I have it the way I have it written here, I'm going to change it a little. Aston said that the more a student is involved in non-academic activities within the college, the more involvement, the higher rate of graduation. that you need to feel involved. You need to feel part of that school. And the way I have it written down, it says Aston argues that the quality and quantity of a student's involvement in the college environment, directly impacts their learning and development. What do you say, John?
Um, I agree with that in terms of a traditional student, but in non-traditional student terms, I disagree. Because there are many times when we're not able to participate in the activities that the traditional student participates in. So that may not necessarily affect our development as a student. It may affect theirs, but we've learned to time manage, if you will. We've learned to overcome those um, areas in which we don't necessarily participate in going to a football game or going to the homecoming events or seeing a museum thing going on on campus. We may be hundreds of miles away from that campus, and so it doesn't allow us to participate as frequently as one might assume a student would participate in. Now, the traditional student or the one that lives on campus or near campus, who probably has a subsidy, so he doesn't necessarily have a full-time job, probably has that kind of time uh, and resources to go to those types of events. We have to participate in other ways. Uh, we participate by doing things like we're doing right now, for example. We participate by doing online seminars. We participate by going to an event that may be related to our major that's close to us, and then relate that information to our majors at the university. And so, yes, for the traditional students, I would agree with that. Not necessarily for the non-traditional student.
I'm going to follow up with that, John. Do you think that colleges can do more to get the non-traditional student involved in
I
a
think
or have activities for the non-traditional student?
I think the universities need to catch up to us because there's a lot more they can do for the non-traditional student that they're not doing right now. And that's because, in my opinion, the non-traditional students treated like and I excuse the expression, the redheaded stepchild of education. And but what they need to understand is in percentages, the non-traditional student is fast becoming the majority as opposed to the minority.
That's true. That is true. That is true. I've done many papers and many studies. The fastest growing population in higher education is the student that is over 24, 25. One of the reasons being that we are having less children. 20 years ago, the population of 18-year-olds in America was like 22%, and now it's like 17 or 16. I have friends I went to high school with who are heads of departments in colleges that are telling me that enrollment is down, and that's a financial burden for colleges because it is the undergrad population that funds the programs for the master's and the PhD. So if there's less money on board. And after COVID, a lot of people reevaluated their careers and saw that they needed to go back to school to get the skills, to get the better jobs because COVID really shook them up. And the third thing that I'd like to point out that is fueling the increase in non-traditional students is that before 2023, if you had a felony conviction, you could not receive a Pell Grant. That has ended. So one of the biggest obstacles to higher education is the ability to pay for it. And now formerly incarcerated people can enter college with Pell Grants, but there's still other obstacles in their way. But that one thing has, and again, we're here for the Benedicts, but that is my area, and I had to put that in there, and I wanted to spread that to the rest of the group. Laura, what about your level of involvement and how you feel that that impacts you or your ability to be involved?
So I'm glad that you specified that, was it Aston or Aston, was
Ashton.
talking about the rate of graduation.
Yes.
Because when I looked that up and read some of the things, I thought they were talking specifically about comprehension.
Mhm.
And so my response that I thought about beforehand was that if I'm getting involved in something that is directly related to what I'm studying, then it will improve my comprehension. And the further removed from that, the less it matters.
Mhm.
Um, but as far as graduation rate, I will echo what John said was that me personally, I'm going to graduate because I decide that I'm going to, it might take me longer because I might have to drop a few classes and go down to two instead of four. Or somebody told me like this week, they told me that in the last calendar year, they took 22 classes. And I went, that is a lot.
How is that
I
possible?
don't know that I could have done that at any point in my academic career. That is a lot. So yeah, I don't feel like I'm not going to go to a football game. I'm not going to join a Greek club. This stuff is not going to help me graduate. But something like attending the anthropology, I forget what they called it, but there was an RSO for anthropology that might help me to graduate. And one of the more important things for that would be the networking for after you graduate. But for me, it doesn't affect my graduation rate.
Thank you so much. Again, higher education theories. Many programs or many development of supportive programs and activities are based on Aston, and there's also Tinto, Tinto, yeah, T-O. Aston and Tinto are usually quoted together because they're very similar and they support each other, theories. But I, looking at the non-traditional student, have often thought, well, as you said, that this tends to be towards traditional students. So to the audience, I would say, take a look at the events that UNLV presents and see how late they are. We just got finished doing the student involvement fair, which was on the 28th. And my first student involvement fair was the fall of 2017, and it's still from 11 to 2 o'clock. It's a great event. It's a huge event. All the clubs are out. There's music, there's food, there's some vendors, some businesses, just everything going all the way down Pida Plaza, all the way down to the end where the end, but just huge, huge, huge. Thousands of people. Ends at 2 o'clock. I'm not even talking non-traditional students. I'm talking 19-year-olds that have a job so they can put some money in the family and then have an evening class to go to class and go home. So that I'm in college and I'm developing a college life isn't happening. And you mentioned the networking, that's social oh my God. Social capital and academic capital, which I was going to put a question about, but you talked about that. So part of college is also developing that network and getting to know people and growing as a person. Um, so so I've already talked about that. So one of my other questions was, how did you, from the time that you enter school, and this is based on a transition theory of Schlossberg, in case any of my professors watch this video. So, adaptation. You entered school one way. Laura said, she had a 1-year-old. And what did you have to do to adapt? What did you have to do that you had to change within yourself to make it to the end, to get there? Go, go, Laura.
Okay, this is another one that I apparently misunderstood
Oh,
because
oh.
I looked up Schlossberg's four the transition theory with the four different things about
Mhm,
be looking at the situation, the personal resources that you have, your own coping skills,
mhm,
and your interpretation and understanding of the transition. And so I have generally a good grasp of if there's a transition happening or upcoming, I have a good grasp of why that's happening.
mhm.
And if I know where I'm going or the reason for the transition, I'm better able to map my own pathway and gather the resources that I'm going to need for that. And 18 years being in school, that's a lot of that's many transitions. That's transitions from even from one class to the next. I've had more than one advisor, as you said. I've changed jobs a few times. These transitions matter. And you knowing your own self. One of them, I think it might be the next one, where you know who you are. What is the most important things to you? And so when things question that, or when things butt up against that wall, your own personal boundaries, you can say, that's not for me, thanks. You know what's important to you. If we can go back to the involvement and somebody says, hey, we're all going out drinking tonight. Well, if I'm getting up for an 8:30 class, I'm not going to the drag show tonight. I'm not going to fill in the blank, right? These are your own personal needs. And if you need to, for whatever reason, you're again with the transitions, finding your resources, which includes money, but it's most likely things like what friend can you reach out to and say, I've had a really tough day. I need somebody to just hear me scream into the void right now. Tell me that I'm not as crazy as, that somebody out there at least understands where I'm coming from. These are some of the things that you might want to gather and make sure that you have in place before you hit that.
Thank you. John.
Um, and I echo what she says when it comes to knowing what you are, what you need. Again, it goes back to, uh, well, you have to prioritize your life, basically. You have to say, like she said, we're going to get up for an 8:30 class or a 9 o'clock class. Even if it's online, you still got to be there for a lot of these online classes. And so you have to schedule that time. You have to budget your time. You have to budget your money, and you have to look at the available resources and use what you need to make it through all that. It's again, you're being your own advocacy and your own advisor, because lots of times the advisors will tell you, oh, you need to do this and you need to do this, and then you look into it and you go, you know what? That could have been an email. I didn't need to do that Zoom meeting because it was totally useless to my what I need for my degree. And so all of these things over a certain amount of time, like she mentioned, it was 18 years. I think mine was a little bit longer, but you learn these things. You learn that you have to filter uh, what you need from what they say you need, but you don't need, and then try to work all that in.
Thank you so much. I I know that was number 12, but I'm gonna just kind of, I think you touched on it a little bit already. But they talk about student development, how students grow, how they become critical thinkers, how they learn information systems, how they develop their own sense of self, develop competence and identity. What happens when and this may be my dissertation, so I'll admit this, when I get to the PhD. What happens to the student who enters college as a fully realized adult? I started having these questions as I was reading this and doing these papers in class because I'm like, but we're talking about young people. Was pushing 60 when I walked up in here. So what develop and I did feel that I changed, but maybe not in the same sense as these theories that are all based on young, straight out of high school people. So did you, Laura, feel in your own self a sense of development? You touched on the things that you learned, but did you even going to the grocery store, are you a different person, Laura?
Absolutely.
How?
Okay, so for the developing competence, I'm competent in some areas, but I'm not competent in others. I have much to learn. For the managing of emotions, I'm still learning. There's times when I feel like, okay, I need to go somewhere else because I'm starting to get up in my feelings here. For the moving through autonomy to independence, I still need a community. I still need others to lean on. I'm, I to feel properly connected and socialized. I still need others. So I'm not independent. For developing mature interpersonal relationships, school did assist with this, with helping to learn how to how to have healthy interpersonal relationships. And again, I'm still learning. Establishing identity, I continually evolve. I sometimes realize that I'm thinking or doing something and I'll say, oh, that's the way so and so did it. That's what so and so said was the right way to do it. And I might still go back to the same way, but I need to question that for myself. The developing purpose, I continue to question and adjust my career goals. Even just yesterday, I was having a conversation with myself about my career goals and what's if I do this versus what if I do that versus that's like my own personal goals, what I would prefer, but also how would the others around me, if I decide to pursue this goal, how will my current manager treat me? How will my current coworkers treat me if I do this versus that? Those are important questions as well. And then number 7, developing integrity. And this is one that I feel like I've had a pretty good handle on my own life. But again, how do you define integrity? Ethics is a little bit, it's difficult to grasp. It's difficult to know that when you start saying, I'm in the right, I know I'm right, you know that something's not quite right. You need to start questioning. You need to always continue questioning and I'll pass them because I know we're running out of time.
No, no, we're good. We're good.
Okay.
Okay, John.
Yes. Let me pull up here real quick. Oh, wrong one.
Was
Where did
number
it go?
12.
Yeah.
I kind of condensed it down when I said
So I'm going to answer 12 and probably 13 as
that. Okay,
well.
go for it.
Um, so as a psychosocially, I believe that I have changed. Yes. A lot of our coursework had to do with conflict resolution. Um, Critical thinking, of course, is paramount to almost everything that we do, especially in education. Cognitively, that would fall under that as well. There was a couple of different things like attending an when I got my first degree in Wichita State University, almost all of those classes were face to face because we still didn't have um, a really good platform for online stuff. I believe Blackboard was just coming into existence at the time I was going to class. And being an older non-traditional student, you have to have a thicker skin when it comes to the comments that you hear from the younger generation when it comes to, well, why are you here? Why are you going back to school? You're already old. And what is that going to do for you? Or are you a professor?
Yes.
No, I'm a student. Sorry, thanks. And so we came across a lot of that uh, when you do face to face. Online, not so much, but you still have to develop those people skills because you're going to end up in group situations where you have to work with the other people and other groups that are anywhere from 18 to 60. And so there's quite the diversity there, and you have to learn to make adjustments as you go along just to be able to function as a quality student in those situations. So there are times when emotions can get the best of us, um, and learning how to handle those emotions, even if you have to step away for a little while, is something that you gain experience in as you get older. Um, Boomers are well known for high tempers, and and so knowing that you have to kind of rein it back and be able to uh, resolve conflicts without allowing the temper to show its face. Developing competence, that's an ongoing thing. You have to develop competence in each of the classes that you're in. You don't have an automatic competence in a class that you've never taken before. So you have to develop that competence as you go in through that class. You've got to figure out, well, where's the professor coming from? What is that professor looking for? And can I incorporate that in my next paper so that I can satisfy the requirements of that class? And so developing competence is very, very important. Establishing identity, our identities change as we go along. I think sometimes as we mature, our identities change a little, and we have to adapt, and sometimes we have to overcome those changes, and sometimes we embrace them. It really depends on the change. Developing a purpose is something that you should be doing at the beginning of every semester you take. There should be a goal in mind. You should have that goal in your head, and work towards that goal. Like, I want to graduate in 2026 at the end of the summer semester. So that's my goal. That's my purpose, and that's what I'm working towards. Um, Even though I've got another degree I'm working on, or two other degrees I'm working on, I'm also working on a commercial photography degree at CSN, which is something I'm doing just because I like it and it's fun and so on and so forth. But it's still coursework, and I have to devote a certain amount of time for that. So uh, I have in this situation, I'm doing three degrees in one at once. I'm doing the UNLV anthropology degree. I'm doing the educational master's degree at SUU, and a commercial photography degree at CSN. So I'm developing a purpose, because that purpose, is, in my opinion, is going to probably spin off into a side business that it's actually starting to work right now, as a matter of fact. And then as far as the anthropology degree goes, it's something, when I start something, I need to complete it. And that's my purpose for that degree. I have to complete that degree. As far as the educational degree is concerned, I believe that's going to help me further my education and further my career. And so all of those things are developing purposes.
Wow, thank you both. Again, I encourage anyone, if they have any additional questions, to put them into the chat. I did say this was going to 2 o'clock, but this actually went a little faster than I was expecting. So, Laura, what is your, and I know it's hard, your one piece of advice to either a non-traditional student entering school or a traditional student? What is your one gem that you would like to share educationally?
Never
Laura.
stop learning.
Never stop learning. Thank you. That's it. Period. That was your
I
period.
mean, you asked for one. Like that's, yeah, never stop learning. You're above ground. It's never too late. Just keep learning.
Great. John,
You can never have too much education.
I do
And
believe that.
so that falls in the same line as never stop learning.
It really does. Um, I am going to, before we, even though I said 2 o'clock, we covered pretty much everything I wanted to cover. I'm just going to, if there's anyone who would like to unmute their mic and ask a question, just go for it. Don't be shy. We are not a bunch of shy people.
There was a question earlier about parenting,
Okay, go
which I
ahead.
would like to address. They were asking about time management and being a parent. And I'm telling you, that is very difficult because you say that you're going to sit down and do this final exam and it's on the online proctoring and it's timed and the kid starts screaming and I've been there. I know. You do your absolute best to manage your time and stuff happens. Sometimes professors are lenient and sometimes they're not. Um, there's been one time where I was this close to needing to retake the class because of a grade, because the things happened. And I somehow found the way to get the professor to move that grade up to, was it a D? Whatever it was that I didn't need to retake that class. And that was like I enjoyed the class, but that's my lowest grade I've ever received. But the thing was, stuff happened, and the professor was very close to not being helpful. But as a non-traditional student, sometimes they really just don't understand.
John.
I have to piggyback on what she says about life happens. And so uh, I've experienced that as well. And I've gotten to the end of a program or almost to the end of the program. And I felt so overwhelmed that I was going to drop the program. And a very wise professor brought me into the office and said, what can we do to help you get through this class? And I said, well, I've just got so much going on that I just need some time. And so he gave me that time and I was able to make it through that class. And so I bring that to my students in the classes that I teach. In fact, the only thing that I won't open unless there's some sort of a legitimate excuse are quizzes and exams. But all of the assignments, I open them at the beginning of the semester and I don't close them until the end of the semester. And if they're late, I don't deduct points for that. I deduct points for other things like maybe the content wasn't exactly what they were supposed to write about. But as far as them being late, I said, look, life happens. I know life happens. It happens to me too. So drop me an email, let me know what's going on, and I'll make it through. I'll get you through it. And so uh, that was a very valuable lesson for me to learn. And so I'm passing that information on to my students.
Thank you for that. I want to address a question because someone came into the meeting later. It was discussed that they took out student loans, but John also is a professor at Southern Utah University.
Yes, Southern
Okay,
Utah University.
and so he is able to take classes, being an employee, he's able to take classes um and then Laura is also able to take classes through that because of his discount. So that was the question. And then there was a joke about student loans being forever and, whatever. But I also, Jim posed the question about non-traditional students needing to develop technical and informational technology. That is from some of the reports that I've done, and in my master's, every report is about non-traditional students or formerly incarcerated, which is also non-traditional. And that's just an area where I need to learn more about. That is the number one, besides next to being able to afford it. That's the number one. I've been in classes with another non-traditional student who dropped out because they didn't know what Google Drive was and they didn't understand they were just totally frustrated. I have a family member that's only 5 years younger than me that just, I don't know how to use a computer. I don't want to learn how to use a computer. And so whether it's the emotional reasons or just not being familiar with, that is absolutely correct. And there are schools that have programs. I did a paper for UNLV. There are schools that have programs that will get the students up to speed before the semester starts. And that is something I would like to institute in UNLV, a program that is like it could be self-taught, it could be in person, but to get them started so they are proficient in technology. Anyway, is there anyone else that would like to? Oh, imposter syndrome. Let's talk about that really quick. Let's talk about that. Imposter syndrome tends to be more women than men and non-traditional students. Imposter syndrome is real. Can we address that really quickly?
I can certainly address that. I experienced that as a photographer. Right now, as a matter of fact, I feel that um, I'm not doing as well as other photographers, and I'm comparing myself to other photographers, and I don't think I'm doing as well as they are. But then some other people say, "Well, yes, you are. You're doing great," and so we struggle with imposter syndrome. Even as a non-traditional student, we would struggle because there might be situations with that. Well, for example, the technology, we feel like the technology is overwhelming to some people. And I've got a kind of a funny story about that. When COVID hit and everything went to online, some of my professors at UNLV had absolutely no clue about how to work Canvas. And so I found myself teaching my professors how to work on Canvas because I've been online for so long that I understood the nuances of Canvas. And even to this day, I'm still learning new nuances to Canvas, which happens almost weekly. And so, um, and I constantly have to teach my students how to navigate Canvas so that they can be successful in the classes that I give them. And so technology is definitely one of those things that can um, trigger imposter syndrome, if you will.
Laura.
Yeah, I can say that this is something that I've worked on over the last 10 to 20 years is my own imposter syndrome. And I could go back to the statements about my career goals and my questioning about how I will pursue either, do I go this way? Do I go that way? And one of the reasons why I question is because am I really qualified to pursue this line of career? If I stuck my hat in the ring to go for that particular posting, will they question, why are you even here?
We've been
Yes,
there. Yes, we have.
imposter
Yes.
syndrome is real.
Yes. I will say that I've noticed running the Facebook group. We have a Facebook group that you have to be a member of our RSO to join first. So it's a safe, enclosed Facebook group where you can discuss anything. I noticed through the years the conversations about imposter syndrome. And and I sat down with someone, she's not at UNLV anymore, but she was the vice president of student affairs at that time. And I said, I'm not a leader. And she goes, of course you're a leader. You're the president of the group and you're doing all. I said, no, 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 no. I do taxes for a living. I'm not a leader. And she said something to me that took me a year and a half to understand. And she said, stop defining leadership by a white, male, heteronormative ideal. So, in other words, when you say leader, I see a white man in a suit and a tie. And I heard her, but I didn't understand it for a year and a half. So, a lot of times, imposter syndrome comes from racism, misogyny, patriarchy. We think it's internal, but a lot of times it's external pressures on us. I would like to end this with one last question, and I'm going to read Adriana's question. And that is, how can I, as a non-traditional student, prepare for grad school? What tips do you have for being better prepared for the new workload and structure?
So each department I'm sorry, I jumped in and just started answering. Is
No,
it
no,
my
that's
turn or
fine.
should?
That's who you apologizing to, me or to John?
Oh, I'm good. Thanks.
Anybody's toes on whom I stepped. I don't want to. Okay, so I've learned this is another really weird thing to me that each department is so vastly different in how they do things, but learn your department's way of how they even assess who they're going to accept as a grad student. For my degree at UNLV in the anthropology department, I needed to have, um, within my letter of intent, I needed to have the approval of the professor that I wanted as my academic advisor. I needed to have at least a foundational understanding of what's my research question going to be for that thesis that I defended that Bev talked about earlier. I needed to have that before I even applied. I needed to show what I intended to do with it, even though that's not what actually happened. I'm not doing the thing that I said I was going to do, but I had to like justify why I'm in grad school. So you need to have these conversations with the kinds of people that you may or may not know who's going to be on the committee deciding who they accept. but you need to have a conversation with the people that you want to work with.
Thank you. John?
And again, I agree with everything that she said there, but I'd like to add that when you shop around for grad school, there's a couple of very important things you need to understand for success. One of them is to look for the accreditation of that particular university and that particular program that you're in. Is the accreditation a regionally accredited program? Because there are lots of grad school programs out there, well, especially those online, that aren't necessarily accredited by regionally accredited uh, organizations that other regionally accredited organizations accept in their particular programs. So let's say, for example, you were going to get into the psychology program at UNLV and you found another psychology program online from, say, I don't even want to name a particular organization, but
Mhm.
there are those out there. And they didn't happen to be a regionally accredited uh, school. Uh, those credits that you earned from that school won't be transferable to a regionally accredited school and vice versa. And so you'll end up getting a terminal degree that probably won't mean much to anybody, um, except for a very small niche of participants in that particular program. I know ITT Technical was one of the schools that came to mind when I was thinking about this, and how their degrees are wonderful technical degrees. I mean, you'll learn a lot. I'm not putting down the program itself, but they were not regionally accredited. So that means if you wanted to go on to a higher degree from that particular program, you couldn't do it because their credits were not transferable. They were terminal. They stopped right there at that school, and that's it. And so that's one of those important things you have to look at when you start evaluating other programs, especially in higher education.
I was listening, but I was on my phone because I got an email either last night or today that the grad college is putting on a so your first step is the grad college. They put what does it take to apply to grad school? What do you need to know? They'll lay it out to grad school, period, and then they'll talk about specific disciplines. I did all mine online, how to apply, how to get funding. I think it might have been still during COVID, but so do go to the grad academy. I forgot whoever asked that question. I'm so sorry, but do go to the grad academy. And they do have seminars where you can get a lot of information. I hope that today, I'm very happy with this. I knew this was a great couple. I knew that this was going to be informative. I am very thankful for their time on a Saturday when they could be relaxing, that they gave us their time. John, is there any parting words that you'd like to say before we sign off?
I appreciate giving me opportunity to give back to some of the students. I really do thank you for bringing this and developing this for us. Uh, I want to reinforce one thing that I said earlier in the program. You have to learn to be your own advocate. It's extremely important that you learn how to navigate the system correctly because it can work both ways for you. You could end up navigating in the wrong direction or you navigate into the right direction. Laura pointed out that even within accredited schools, sometimes the credits don't transfer because they're not exactly the same. I think you mentioned that somebody requested a syllabus from 1991, and they wanted to take that syllabus and compare it to what they have currently to see if they were compatible. And so you have to be aware that sometimes even those between accredited universities may not be transferable. And so you've got to make sure before you actually enter that course, is it going to be beneficial to me? Can I transfer it?
Laura, your parting words.
I will real quick back up to number 14, where you asked about the student that doesn't necessarily feel confident going to university. And the answer to that, from my perspective, is that university is not the only place to earn continuing education. even things like Coursera or YouTube, you can get an internship, you can get mentorship, there's trade schools, there's other ways to continue your education that just because you don't feel like you can afford, for all the reasons, a university degree, there's other ways to continue your education. Just keep learning.
Great. I would like to end by a couple of announcements about the Alliance of Non-Traditional Students. Age is not a determining factor, though I tend, because I'm an old lady, talk about age. When you Google and look up non-traditional students, you will never see the same age. Some say 23, 24, 25, but you could be 18 and be a parent, and that makes you non-traditional. So please don't let your age stop you from joining. Our group is open to anyone who feels that our group fits them. And you will find us on the UNLV involvement page. Just look for ants. Often we're called ants. Someone said something about, are you a professor? And the answer was, no, I'm a student. That actually is our tagline. So we have, some of us have t-shirts and hoodies that say, yes, I am a student. We have stickers, yes, I am a student. So it's kind of our tagline because people think of college students, like my granddaughter's age, and here I am. Also, next Thursday, we're having our in-person event that is called Coffee and Donuts, meet and greet. It is open from 11:30 to 6 p.m. It is just an informal walk in, meet, say hello, get some coffee. Our coffee is being donated by Grouchy Johns. The ex-member who has graduated is a manager at Grouchy Johns, and her managers that own that spot are UNLV alumni. So it is being donated. We're going to have tea, coffee, juice, if I can get to Costco. And we will have, it says coffee and donuts. We're not having any donuts, but we're having pastries and goodies and, croissants and things like that. So it'll be delicious. There will be vegan and gluten-free also. Let us know when this ends, the same platform that you registered, Tidy Cow, will send you a review. Let us know. Let us know how this worked for you, what was not working, what wasn't working, and please feel free at this time to unmute your phones. You don't have to change your cameras because, again, I am recording, but please unmute your phones and say whatever you would like to say to Laura and John before we actually end this session.
Laura and John, thank you all so very much for your time, which has been iterated already. Some of the nuggets that were dropped are pertinent to non-traditional students, especially over, I would say over probably 30, 35 years old, because we are into life at this phase. And much of the time you jumped right in, Laura, with time management and study skills. That can be a real challenge with all of the other tasks that you have lined up on a daily basis. So I'm just so I'm blown away by the presentation. I thought that it was full of wisdom, actual things that you can take and begin to apply right now, and then other things that you will have to work into the way that you do things on a regular basis. You'll have to make these your habits so that you fall to your habits and not because you won't rise to the expectations that you have for yourself. But I really really enjoyed this presentation, and Miss Carter, thank you. This was awesome, and I really am. I did go to the website. Thank you for that information, and I will genuinely consider joining this.
No, thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Carl, I see you unmuted yourself. Would you like to say something?
Well, thank you so much. This has been beneficial, and I appreciate how everyone shared their personal information. It was great, and to just be open like that. And thank you so much.
You
This
are
is
welcome. Suzanne, Stephanie, Naomi.
Hi, everybody. Laura, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you since we shared dinner at the hospitality thing all those many years ago. Heck,
Suzanne, tell them what happened to you in December.
I graduated in December with a double major,
Woohoo!
sociology and anthropology. And on the 6th of last month, I turned 70. So age is not a factor, man.
Not a
I don't know
factor.
what I'm going to do with my degrees, but I know I'm not stupid, that's for sure.
Stephanie,
Thank you for sharing your experience, strength, and hope, Laura and John. I'm thinking about grad school, a little intimidated by grad school, not sure how to finance grad school. And you know what? I don't know, more will be revealed, but I'm grateful to be here. And Bev, is that coffee open to alumni or only
girl, you better
active
show
staff?
up.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
we don't discriminate as ants.
Okay,
Stephanie,
cool.
say something. Parting words.
Hi, everyone. I am the current co-president of ants. Um, I'm trying to follow Miss Bev's footstep, but who knows
Be
some
yourself.
big shoes to fill.
Be yourself.
But this is why I don't turn on my
That's
my
fine.
sound.
That's fine. I love your son, Rob. He's so dynamic. I love him.
What I do have to say is, don't hesitate to join ants. Ants has been my lifeline. Anytime I have a question, somebody has the answer. And if somebody doesn't have the answer, they can find a way to get the answer. After conversations with Miss Bev, I'm ready to conquer the world. I tell her that all the time. Like, excuse me, I'm just going to take over a country real quick. I'll be right back. But yeah, do not hesitate. You know, if you join the RSO and you're not participating a whole lot, that's fine. If
Yeah,
you participate every single day, that's fine.
no big
If you want to do more or take on some kind of role within helping out with the organization, that's fine too. But I would say don't hesitate to join and stick with us, because someone always has the answer to your question. And even if they don't have the answer to your question and you're just like, I can't, I absolutely cannot, someone will be able to tell you how to deal with it.
Yeah, it's happened. It's happened.
Mhm.
We had a few years ago a young man that said, "That's it, I quit." And they talked him out of it, and they helped him, and we were able to get him help. So and we're able to get him. He was facing housing insecurity and food insecurity, and we were able to get it fixed for him by networking and getting him the right things. So I just want to say as parting, I appreciate all of you. I almost want to cry because I think this was better than I know the Benedicts, but this came off better than I expected. I'm so happy. And I just want to say
Before you
that
close out, Bev, before you close out,
what?
I'm going to interrupt you, girly. I just want to say that for the first couple of years at UNLV, I felt awkward because I was so much older than everybody else. And I too have been asked if I was one of the teachers. But you know, the non-traditional students group has been really warm and welcoming for me because I felt like I could come into the center and belong and be part of. And I didn't have to like feel bad about I'm not young anymore, and maybe you guys don't identify with that, but I've had that thought about it's too late for me, and it's not ever too late. And so, it's kind of nice to hang out with the non-traditional folk.
Yeah, I like to say that there's a little more gray in our scarlet and gray, but we are still rebels.
I like that. I like that. It's in there. I got it in there.
Those are my wisdom sparkles.
Oh, Naomi, you wanted to say something before I closed out? I've been trying to close out for 10 minutes, but no, yes. So I just want to say one last thing that Naomi.
I'm sorry. Oh,
Yeah,
I was trying to talk and I can you hear me now?
yes, we can.
Okay. I apologize for not having my video on.
No, fine, fine.
Yeah, I mentioned in the chat that I had
No,
a
no,
seizure
no,
this
no, don't
morning. So
even. It's being
yeah,
recorded, so it's fine.
okay. So I just wanted to say thank you for the encouragement and that I spoke at the I won the FYE first year experience certificate of achievement for
Yes, you
Connection
did.
Awards
Yes, you did.
scholarship last week, and when I was presented it, I spoke about the non-traditional students group and Miss Bev and how supportive it's been for me, just knowing that there are others out here doing what I'm doing. I'm not alone. This meeting is great because seeing lifetime learners and knowing that it's possible and that despite for me age, I'm 47. I have children. I have grown children. I have disabilities, knowing that I can do it too, and that others are out here experiencing what I'm experiencing in classes, because you do feel alone in a lot of these classes, especially when you first start.
No. Oh.
Especially when you that's not well I get, so especially when you first start and you're in your freshman classes and you're
Yes.
just starting out and everybody's like 18 or 19, you feel like you're by yourself, you're walking around. So I just appreciate this, and I thank you all for your time, Mr. and Mrs. Benedict, and everybody else that's here, and just know that it's really affecting us, and it's encouraging us to go forward.
Thank you so much. 1 minute to end. I will just say that in my second year of running the group, someone came up to me and she was literally shivering. Her husband had died. She got herself back into school and she was like, "How do you do it? How do you do it? Oh my God, I'm so nervous. I'm so scared." And I said to her, "I had a stroke. I'm sorry, I had a seizure my first semester. So you can do it. It doesn't mean you're not going to be afraid or shaking or whatever. You can do it." And I probably shouldn't say this on recording, but as a New Yorker, just don't let them F with you. Get to your goal. Thank you, everyone. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Stephanie, stay on so you and I can talk a little.
Yes.
And Suzanne, you can hang out too. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. You
Thank
all can
you.
can
Later,
leave
Laura.
leave it. Thank you so much.
Bye, John. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to stop the recording.